The year is 2020. The world has been ravaged by an extraterrestrial invader named COVID, who conquers planets by spawning disease, depression, fear, and anxiety. As society falls into ruin, the clarion call goes out for divine masculine to activate.
Peace. Good afternoon and morning and evening, depending on where you are, to the world at large. This is I would say, first live edition of Divine Masculine Activated with yours truly, JD, and a good brother, Corny Grange.
Peace and love, folks.
Exactly. So we wanted to do a little something different because the vision that we had for this series was adjusted for a world that didn't quite exist yet because, we were foolish enough to think of something 3 months ago. And you've seen how the last 90 days have gone. Exactly, man. But like for sure, we wanted to provide something that gave an alternative to the noise that was the world, especially as it applied toward manhood, masculinity, and all things that fall under the definition of that particular polarity. Both fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at the situation, many things have occurred since we came up with this original idea and started filming. And we definitely didn't want to be tone deaf to the realities that are currently happening worldwide, right? I think the irony in all of that is it further proves the necessariness of spaces like these that discuss the excess of, I think, the immature masculine forces at work from the top of our governments to the top of our companies, all the way down to the beat cops that you see on the street. I think this is definitely a time where a paradigm shift needs to happen. So, Court, I know we talk about stuff like this all the time, but what's your take on the situation, especially as it relates to not only our series, obviously, but I think society at large?
Yeah. So one, like you said, we talk about this stuff often. So it's kind of like anything that you train for, you are more prepared for, right? And so things don't come as a shock or a surprise when you have trained accordingly. And so since we spend that time training, what we did with our initial vision, comes off lighthearted. Because while these topics are heavy, we're used to carrying this weight. So it's not as heavy on our shoulders. So we can laugh, we can joke, and we can be serious. But in regards to like pushing this content, pushing this information out to a public eye that is currently, for the most part, not involved in the same level of practice, and it could be because they're practicing in a different area of self or understanding. It's important for us to make sure that we say like, hey, listen, like we understand what's going on, yes, and this is why the Divine Masculine Activator was created, because there's too much emphasis, there's too much visibility on we talk about this piece too, but not on immature masculinity. Not toxic, but just immature masculinity. And a lot of this stems from that. A lot of what we're seeing now in terms of the level of uproar, right, is due to immature masculinity that was impacted on certain individuals. But then we also have to look at the level of stillness that we have had for the past 3 months. And we've been sitting. And so a lot of us are overdue for an outlet.
Right.
A lot of us are enraged because our outlets were taken away. And then there's the rest of us that's just like, nah, we tired of this. And we like fully tired of this. And so now we here.
Yeah, so I know a major one that we discussed a lot is back to the immaturity piece is how insecurity breeds itself in different ways, especially when there are very few avenues, whether that be on the side of people who are oppressing or people who are oppressed. A lot of times, like that fear and that insecurity comes out as anger, rage, aggression, or in some ways apathy or like general inactivity. I see a lot of that mirrored in, I think, the civil unrest that we're seeing in a lot of places, just coupled with years and years and years of other stuff that we don't have time to talk about. Before we get into the video, how do you think that plays into the ways that we interact with each other right now? Court?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're frozen. What we're gonna do right now, let's just let y'all develop your own opinions about the series, because I don't want to take up too much of time. So let's run that episode one.
I would dare and
Activated. What's going on, guys? Where we basically just broke the necessity of
that's strange.
whatever flow comes your way.
Don't know what's
Right.
happening here.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Be awesome, my friends.
And we're gonna get right into that because it's funny as we were talking previously. Like that's where my mind was headed to water.
Yeah.
And that quote.
Well, that's why I did
was
this.
Like, we right there. Everything that we done did. Bruce back here giving me all types of like subliminal messages in my cerebellum. But nah, the point, purpose, process, principle, perforated line where you can start ripping down the page
Right.
of why we here is multifaceted, and we kind of cool with that.
Right.
And we feel like a lot of people are too. Right. Like
They-
they're cool with the multifacetedness of life.
People are starting to accept the fact that life is multifaceted and there's nothing they can do about it, mostly because life has just showed them that like this, I can make you sit in your house.
Man.
And go anywhere from getting really, really familiar with the nuances of Netflix and Hulu, and or, depending on your situation, have to choose between starvation and getting shot by the military police because you just violated quarantine.
And they right outside your door waiting. And they bored too. So they need something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which all wraps up in that construct of the masculine, right? All of those things put us in that realm where we are talking about masculine things. And so looking at the divine masculine activated, it's that balance that often goes overlooked. And so if masculine and feminine sit apart, right, at the bottom parts of the triangle, where at the top you got the oneness. It all is one. But as they come off to their own individual spaces and then everything else that exists, our essence comes from that point.
Absolutely.
Right. So like we're created from here, but then masculine and feminine gets broken up, and that starts the process of the whole build out of self. And so I say that to kind of ground the conversation that we're gonna have with regards to like WTF is a DMA. Like what the fuck is a divine masculine? You know what I'm saying?
Why does it need to be activated?
Ooh. And isn't it anything like Jerry Curl? Because we know what that ended up being.
Or Xfinity.
Oh man, that fucking 2-hour window that you had to go there.
What's more annoying? Roll me wrong with
On
Comcast.
Comcast, bro. Because me and Roll, I might give him an hour and a half where he just on a roll. We're good. Comcast, you might not show up for a day and a half.
Right, so now that we know what DMA is not.
Yes.
So Divine Masculine Activated is it's an orchestra that we are composing in true Outcast organized noise type fashion. A la Spodio Dopalicious, by the way, just to really set the tone. In case you didn't know. And if that's cool.
That guy.
Google guys.
That
Google
guy.
guys.
Yep.
You just did it, bro. You were that guy. So DMA is not that either. It's not that. There was some cap on that. It was definitely some cap on that.
A lot of cap.
Yeah, see, take it off. No cap. So DMA is not cap. DMA hashtag no cap. DMA is the process of showing you who we are unapologetically, radically authentic, and intentionally loving. DMA is us explaining how we got here, and DMA is giving you access to the tools that we have, that we use, in hopes that it will allow you to construct the pillars that you know that you need already, so that you can properly function your system, so that way we run into each other on the street, won't be no static.
Because energy loves static, but it don't need it.
Does it love static?
I mean, static is energy, right? It's a burst of it in a moment. And so, like, as opposed to the normal current, it's that which.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah. So you're talking about clashes, like, well, frequency mismatches. Okay. So that's 1,000 level. I told you we're going to get we're going to get there. That is going to make sense. What we are also going to do, I guess, right now, because this is class number 1, is explain what we expect from you. But I guess before we explain that, we should let you know who we are first, right? Like, WTF is the C Grange.
Yeah, that's me. Courtney Grange. You'll probably hear me go by many names, many understandings, many seats of self. But I am
the light skin keeps sweating.
No, there's nothing keep sweaty about me. That's just wrong. You could have said the dark skin, I'll be sure, and we might have been in a better space.
Ooh. I feel like you need to have more hair for that.
Here. See, you're bringing me back to the cap. I'm trying not to cap, like you're forcing me.
No accountability. I ain't forcing you to do shit. Okay.
No,
man, go on, bro.
Me, born of 2 Geminis, literally born one day apart.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, man. She had birth in Aries, whose entire zodiac happens to sit on the fire side of everything you can think of. So I'm moon rising, all them other things that I don't know nothing about. So I'm saying it so you get it early because you know about that stuff. I know about a couple other things. We'll get into that later. But pretty much I am the greatest thing my ancestors ever hoped for. And walk and talk and spit form. So I take that very seriously. I don't play with my principles, but I pretty much play with everything else. Because like JD was saying, and we'll get into who is a JD in a second. At the end of the day, all of this is happening, and it's our responsibility to choose how we happen to it. So if we engage or if we don't engage, it's our choice. The rest of it, that was going to be here no matter what we did.
Right.
And I embrace that with a deepness that shows up in a lot of different ways that I will hopefully convey and give y'all over time. So to swing the pendulum, Jamal Witherspoon.
Yeah. See, it's the with. When you say the with, so all right, first and foremost, this is pure rant. Somebody misspelled my name again this week, and that really had me in my feelings for a whole 13 minutes. Solid 13.
How did they miss?
Because it's weather. So when you say wither, they think
so they
throw the I instead of EA.
Jamal Weather.
Right. Okay, cool.
AKA.
I just had to set that tone now because I know in 6 months somebody's gonna be like, "Yo, you're JD Witherspoon, right?" It's like, nah, bro.
That's not me.
That's a pub in London. which I hear is super dope, by the way.
I've heard of that spot before.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, JD Witherspoon. Like, I'm gonna check that out. Like,
so we gonna get a stout at that joint, right?
Right.
Yeah, bro. What WTF is a JD?
So that's a really good question. So today, JD is really happy that I got his favorite brand of chips. JD is hydrated. JD has been consistent with this workout during Rona, which, like, I like, exactly. I just like to mention when I stay intentionally consistent with stuff, because I know how many excuses there are to subscribe to, to like not do what you say you're gonna do and not do what you know you need to do.
Yeah.
So JD is intentional about being consistent with the things that he thinks matters. JD is loving. JD is a smart ass. JD is cocky as hell. JD is currently speaking about himself in the third person.
I was gonna let you cook until you said it.
Yeah, for some reason. That's why I'm at. That's why I'm at.
Smart ass.
Allow
Keep
me.
it to yourself.
Allow me. Oh, nah, that's how deep it is.
That's how you know it's real, actually.
You think I'm snarky at you? Nah, son.
I'm even more snarky at myself.
It's deep in here. It's deep in here. Nah, man, I operate in a state of being in really, really close contact with all the voices, but actively engaging with the highest one most often these days.
Sheesh.
But I definitely kick it with the ignorant one. Like, we chill.
Yeah.
But like within boundaries, like, all right, we'll chill on the porch. You can't always come to the living room because you might steal some shit. But other than that, man, JD be chilling. We're not doing my best to be as diplomatic as possible to reduce needless static, just as an act of life path, or operating as an agent of change in some capacity for some reason. Probably watching anime, probably reading, probably cooking something with my lady, or trying to get mangoes in the wintertime. In the wintertime.
Always a thing. You must find who has to get mangoes.
Well, I mean, honestly, like, so, Earth bless me, man. She got some in the mail coming up too.
Oh,
and then
bring that up.
And then the homie Rick, man, good looking out, Rick. Cubano family always pays. You know what I mean? So it's like, they shipping the mangoes up. I was like, my family loves me.
That's it. That's a good spot to be in. So as we take that pendulum back from like left to right, to the middle, WTF is a DMA. What is a divine masculine? Why does it need to be activated?
Okay.
Why are we sitting here in these little carved out chairs that somebody in Ghana made in this, this space of spaces?
I feel like, should we intentionally flex Eleke for episode 1? Would that be too much? Would that be
yo, put on every Eleke.
Be like, take it from under my shirt.
Right, and put them all out.
I ain't gonna tuck my chain.
Oh, yo.
I ain't gonna tuck my chain.
They worried about why we got chains because we come kings and we like shiny things.
Right.
Always have.
Well, exactly, right?
Exactly.
Stop showing us the date, my brother.
Welcome.
DMA, like, what is the divine masculine? Why does it need to be activated? Why are we here to talk about it?
Absolutely.
Why do we think you need to actually know what it is and dig into it in your own personal, precious way? So masculinity, as we talked about a little bit, right? Like, it's that space of, for a lot of us, action. It's that space of moving forward, of hit first, ask questions from an interlude, and have fresh baked cookies.
That is kind of awesome.
So y'all missed it, but we didn't. We took a break. There was some fresh baked cookies waiting, and now we are fully re-energized for this space.
You legitimately, you're rejuvenated.
Oh, I feel great.
You got eye to eye situation. But yeah, WTF is a DMA.
So now we're here at that. Yes.
Right. So for me, DMA is the amalgam of archetypes that we use to keep, I think, to give structure, for me, to give structure to the foundation that I balance everything else on top of. For me, DMA is structure. That is my principles. And it is also the interplay between my principles and my emotions. So it's that really, really happy space between form and function. DMA is water, basically. I think DMA is Bruce Lee. Yeah, DMA is Bruce Lee.
In every single way. Yes.
And that's how I look at it. Hopefully that all makes sense. But once again, we're really going to delve into this. I promise there's like more structure. I also don't want to oversimplify and over relegate what divinity is, because the divine piece for me is what makes it above definition. The pillars for me are like the shot clock.
Okay.
And then divinity for me is like the basketball court. So it's 96 feet. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but the parameters are what make the game interesting. I think that's what makes boundaries impressive. Because now you can't step beyond this level. Like, you can enjoy Uncle Nearest, but you can enjoy Uncle Nearest whiskey within parameters. You can't day drink on Uncle Nearest. That's not gonna work for you.
Yeah. And that part of can't, right? Like,
yes,
embracing that. At least when you take all of that and put it together in yourself, like there is a necessity for can't.
There really is,
right?
But choosing your can't.
Yeah, that's the choice, right? Like that whole concept of, can't should never be in a man's vocabulary. It immediately makes you cringe as a man who understands how important canting is,
Because when you go as far as the edges of your polarities, you understand that there are some things that needn't happen.
Yes, yeah. And it's for me, that's often a really interesting space of dialogue.
Yeah.
When with the feminine. Because their boundaries are, of course, way more broad than ours. And so where we tend to line up on can't, sometimes, especially for me, when I'm in a conversation with a woman or a feminine energy that like truly accepts that essence,
okay,
they look at me like, nah, but there is no can't. Like there is no spoon. And in my head, I'm like, but there's a necessity to this.
Like you might need to consider not having a spoon. But it might not be there. But there's a spoon.
Yeah, but it's necessary for some of us.
Absolutely.
And in that divine masculine space, for me at least, that's the journey. Is the acceptance of the areas where I can't right now. Right? Because I may be able to later, as my sense of self, as things start to get more crystallized in who I am.
Okay.
I may be able to later, but in this reality, in this moment, my discernment helps me understand what I should and should not.
I'm really happy you said this word.
And that's the can't,
So DMA is structure, DMA is principle, DMA is the discernment to knowing when to implement them. And that's where it is. That's where you get to, be writing your curse words in cursive. We can do that over here. It's Friday night at, 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Curse words are about to be in cursive for the next 45 to 60 minutes for me, personally.
Very eloquently.
Right. It's not that eloquently, to be honest. By around 11, it's gonna be good and colloquial. It's gonna be real front porch shit, to be honest with you. But up until then, there's a trajectory that you set your day upon.
Yeah.
And part of the awesomeness, I think, of being masculine oriented is like goals, objectives, metrics. All of these are great so long as you don't let them go outside of their boundaries.
That's right.
I can't bring left brain shit to a right brain space. The discernment tells me, well, now actually be chaotic. Now be playful. Now be boyish.
Yeah.
Now color outside the lines. And WTF is a DMA. A DMA is someone who understands the two, knows how to make them operate in harmony.
Knows how to say it one more time.
It knows how to operate between the two and make them both work in harmony.
Yeah, I can take that. It makes me think a lot about that space of harmony. Because again, it is whatever it needs to be in the moment where you find it.
Absolutely.
Even in terms of like sonic form, when you look at how most of the songs the sonics behind the songs that we love are made.
Yeah.
There's layers,
Mm-hmm.
and then specific layers make the biggest difference, right? So certain beats, if you strip away one thing, it just does not bang the way we've all banged with it. I was randomly watching the making of Day and Night, the song by Kid Cudi.
Yes.
And so he was breaking down the original tune that he found, just the original line. And then he was like, the first thing I did was add echo to it. So it gave it that ghastly, ghostly.
Yeah, so the
feel.
ethereal but almost
Yes.
ominous feel.
And then there was another layer, but like that first fundamental layer for that song was the most important. And then the masculine piece, at least for me as a divine masculine, I look at it as always seek to find that one layer. Okay. There will be many that create the song, right? That create the harmony.
But what's the backbone of it?
But what's that one layer for me that I know that's where I find my sovereignty, myself.
Okay.
These other things can be me in different formats, right? And so like
you look at it like a percussionist.
Yeah. Because
this is my baseline. Yep. This is the structure. Everything else comes
unattached. Okay. It can come back and it can go away if necessary, but like this is my baseline, this is my structure.
See, so you have a long wave frequency. Okay. You're low with it.
Yeah.
808s are heartbreaks. Okay. Well, see, that's so back to the static detail.
We never have an episode where we can talk about that album. Jesus. 808s and heartbreaks.
So yeah, I'm really excited to go on this journey with, whoever decides to listen to this beyond 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like if you're still watching and you made it this far listening without skipping, then I gotta show love to you. Hi, J. Cole. I'm positive you're gonna hear this one day. What I want you to do is sit and think about what your frequency is and how you structure the underbeat that sets the cadence of your life. Because for us, DMA is sort of our Pro Tools. And we are such hip hop kids.
Man.
We are such hip hop kids.
The amount of references in the last 8 minutes long.
Excessive at this point. I really do blame rap music. But yeah, like how do you organize the foundational frequency that is your life? Because up until you do that, you don't know what your system is. And that's where you get into the static, so to speak. That's where you crash. That's where the frequency clashes are. Not that different frequencies can't operate in synchronicity, but you have to know where in the orchestra your instrument sits. DMA is here to help you conduct your band.
Listen, if Barry White was alive right now, he'd have just walked in and started singing real social like.
That would be amazing.
The maestro himself would have been like, yeah, baby.
Right.
But no, I'm joking. I'm playing. But yeah, that is why we're here. That is why we exist in this space. We appreciate you for the journey that you have said yes to, because you said yes. That's why you're here.
Absolutely.
And we thank you for allowing us to learn and grow with you, because this is a space where, we are learning and growing as we are seeking to allow what we have learned to teach.
All right, so that was episode 1, and I see the private chats have definitely been pretty active. Yeah, right. They've been clicking. One of the first that stuck out to me was from Full Disclosure. Hopefully, it's still on. It was: do you feel that men are not currently masculine can become masculine, or are they lost?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, that's what we're here for, right? That's the job.
That's what we're here for. Let's get it.
All right. So I'll jump in on that. The question is. You're gonna laugh when you hear this. The question is yes, but I'm gonna tell you why. So they are lost. That doesn't mean that they cannot find themselves. That does not mean that they cannot create themselves. It just means that there's that whole dark night of the soul that my man Mike talks about all the time, or your many references to the untethered soul. There's some untethering that needs to occur. They're probably coupled to something that is not serving them. As far as masculinity, I mean, I don't know that they can be not masculine. I think they just may not be operating in the fullness piece. Like back to the archetypes, like a king consists of a tyrant and a coward. It's a king operates in more like of a balanced space. So say you have the triangle, you're at the top and you're sort of in the middle, whereas on one side you have like your positive and the other side you have your negative. But to a certain extent you need both. That's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would not add anything to it. I would add a little bit more backstory, because a lot of times, even when we discuss, right, masculine, feminine, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, we automatically pigeonhole them into male and female. Right. So when we ask questions about men, are men not masculine enough? It automatically assumes that men are supposed to be masculine, when the reality, or at least for me, my truth is that we are supposed to be balanced. Now, you may have a masculine core or you may have a feminine core, and then how you move from that core outward is what it is. And that's, for me, where a lot of it gets lost, especially with men, is that our core is something that we are so far removed from when you add in childhood trauma, generational trauma, growing up under immature masculines or grown males or grown boys who never got to their own core. So yes, it is messed up. It is not there, but at the same time, it's there waiting for you to go get it. You just got to start diving into yourself and stop seeking the answers to who you are outwardly. You're never going to find it out there. You will always find it in here if you take the time to go deep enough. And that means going through all of those layers, the childhood trauma, the generational trauma, in a lot of sense, taking care of your inner fuckboy, right? And like caring for him the way he was never cared for, so that you can get past that point of who you were. But yeah, that's what I would add.
And linking that.
Came in too.
Oh no, that was the one. I think Manny. No. The wizard made sure to put it on the screen so people could have context. Right, but I think with that, while you were talking, I just had another idea of thinking about how that's definitely represented, like the hyper-militarization of police, right? Like the little boy who grows up playing with G.I. Joes. Like there's such a disconnect between the lack of humanity in what you are doing, or maybe there is, and that's why you've had so many instances of people sort of just be stuck, even though they're dressed like a stormtrooper. But for many, like, I'm finally in a position of authority now, and because I've never actually had dominion over myself as a sovereign, I can exercise that externally. I have toys. I have my APCs. I got the full riot gear. I got the M4. I got the extra clip and the taser and, and the tear gas just in case. Right. And so if you haven't like really done that work and you're seeking the external validation, well, then, like that's going to be one avenue. For somebody else, it may be having, the BMW, Mercedes, whatever, or the truck on the lift kit, with the Browning gun rack in the back. I think, right. Yeah. And I think that further drives it home. And thank you for that question, full disclosure, because I think that definitely ties back into exactly what we're dealing with on a ground level right now as like the last hurdle as we move to like the next paradigm shift.
Yeah, which is interesting in terms of the conversation around, we keep seeing stuff around like let it burn, right? Like rioting and what is the sense behind rioting, and go out there, but don't destroy your own neighborhood. Like be selective with how you riot. Which in itself is oxymoronic. Like you're rioting, you are raging. There is no structure or strategy to it. That's kind of the point of it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with raging comes into what caused the rage, not the rage itself,
Yep.
right? Like, don't chastise a child and then get mad at the child for being upset, for crying, for throwing a tantrum. It's natural human responsive behavior. So, we have to accept all of the parts that we play. And that is another part of the divine masculine piece from my perspective is I am 100% accountable for my universe. Anything
Yeah.
that is happening to me, through me, or around me, I'm accountable for it. I might not be
Mm-hmm.
responsible for it. I didn't start it or cause it. But if it's here, I'm the one that's got to take care of it, or it's just going to keep continuing to rule me. And that's not going to happen with me. But that's
Yeah.
me, right?
So, all right, cool. So this is, I think, a brilliant point. And then I think since I haven't seen any other questions pop up because I'm watching, I want to close out on the notion of taking responsibility for that which you're not necessarily responsible for. Because you echoed that in your last point. I think there's a lot of things that maybe do happen to you as someone who firmly believes in the law of attraction. And just as I said that, the question's popping up.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Yeah, V Janelle, we see you. And as soon as I wrap this point up, I'm gonna make sure I get straight to your question. But I think a lot of people, there are things that are traumatic in your life that aren't necessarily your fault, right? Child molestation, you probably didn't utilize the law of attraction to bring that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are that's just life happening. I think the hardest part of details like that in life is that you still are directly responsible for what you're going to do about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Can we argue that, like, is that divine masculine from a woman when she takes that initiative to restructure her own system? Or will we redefine that because a woman's doing it?
Oh man. All right, we going there. So, like we talked about in the first episode,
Yeah.
it is a triangle, right? At the top, you've got the oneness, the all-encompassing.
Right.
Then it breaks into masculine and feminine from an energetic perspective. So at the fundamental of it, anybody can channel either energetic format they need. It shows up in a very different way based on your core. So absolutely, a woman can take that, a feminine woman can take that, run with it, and it completely lead the masculine charge when, if, and how she sees necessary. Of course, that can be the way. What happens in there is the consideration of, is it balanced or is it creating imbalance? So, for example, if the woman is picking up a mantle that a masculine man put down, that is inherently imbalanced. Meaning, if you are asking, or for example, the case with Black women, and I'll speak to Black women specifically because, like, the time we're in right now,
Facts.
that's
And
a whole
have been
nother
in for
narrative that
quite
needs
some
to get
time.
addressed. Exactly. Yeah. Like, George Floyd is who we now banging for in these streets because we could see it, but also because he's a man. And it does not leave my spirit that we still have that to deal with. Like, we've got tons of secondary information and secondary energy towards Breonna Taylor.
Facts. Who almost got sort of caught up and lost in the sauce because George Floyd got, I feel that.
And I hate that I even have to say secondary attention, right? That's the imbalance. That's Facts. Going back to it. It's not balanced because we have left our mantles behind. And I wouldn't even say that it was our fault, because another conversation, but like, those mantles were taken from us. Let me say it that way. The masculine man's mantle, from a Black man's perspective, that was taken from us
systematically.
It was replaced with something that was designed to be insidious and spread. And so as soon as you take that from us, it automatically affects the balance we have with the Black woman, especially the feminine cord Black woman. So now everything's awry. And so everybody's doing a little bit of their part, as well as somebody else's part, as well as something they were taught, as well as something trauma taught them. And it goes on and on and on until, for me at least, we learn the difference between responsibility and accountability because they're not the same, right? I'm accountable for everything in my universe. I am not responsible for it. And that lack of tethering to responsibility is what allows me to not move from a place of shame or pride. I don't feel like I have to save everybody, even though I want to. I don't feel that I owe anybody anything, even though I want to owe people some things because of things I've done in the past. I'm accountable, but I choose when I'm responsible. And I think that's especially significant with the divine masculine is like learning that space between action, feeling, logic. This space in the middle between it, right? Like before you take action on what you think or what you feel is what makes you masculine because you have that opportunity to sit with it. Male or female, you have that opportunity to sit with it. How you choose to sit with it is up to you.
Perfect. There's nothing that needs to be added to that, which is kind of perfect because V. Janelle, your question was, do you think people are more focused on the physical aspects rather than the core roots of the problem they are consistently battling? I would say a definitive yes. Specifically as a result of pretty much everything we just went through. Not sure how much you caught, but the long and short is the external seems easier because it's in front of you and it requires you to go through less layers, as opposed to doing the real internal work that allows you to identify the true causes of whatever the physical symptom is. And I think that's just human nature. And so
your mechanisms and metaphors.
There you go. Mechanisms and metaphors. Are you playing like the frame rate of the video game, or are you just doing the graphics? Like you just want Ken to do the Hadouken, which is dope. I like the Hadouken. It's just you have to know other combinations to win it. Herbert Gilliam wants to know from this perspective, how does accountability and responsibility differ?
Yeah, I think, I touched on it with what I said previously in regards to responsibility is when you decide that you are going to take action. Accountability is when you decide that this is something that you need to be placing inside of your dominionary perspective, right? So like I am accountable for my son. I am not always responsible for his behavior because he's his own human being. And JD, to your point around being sovereign, a sovereign individual lives on 100% accountability and chooses very precisely when they are going to be responsible. So, taking it back a little bit further to the archetypes of a king, you got a king who is also at all times a tyrant, also at all times a coward. It's just a matter of who needs to show up that day, because in the moment where the king is leading his army into battle and they getting their ass whooped, you need to feel that cowardly feel. You need to fall back, and you don't need to try to be a tyrant and get everybody killed because you think you're going to win the war. Now, history may tell us something different, but that's the history that we're reading.
I was about to say, that's another topic in and of itself.
But that's where sovereignty comes from. I am able to untether myself from what I'm reading and what I believe.
Exactly.
My belief comes first. Everything comes after that. So, to your point, like, yes, there's the perspective of responsibility and accountability. One is yours. So, like, you have to answer that question for yourself. The way I answer it is with what I just said. But it's going to be different for every single person, or at least it should be different.
Okay. So we got enough time for one more. Yeah, exactly right. And he's going to ask me with the 10-minute answer. How can men better handle failure? I find men are really hard on themselves about their wins and losses. You want to go first?
And he said it's tied to their masculinity. So for me, I think that failure in itself is a metaphor. It ain't a mechanism, right? If you want to get deeper into that, I would suggest, and I like to give like frameworks, and since we're short on time, Ray Dalio's Principles. It's an 8-part mini series on YouTube that will break down how to take how to look at failure as learning, and specifically how to go about doing it. So that would be the first piece, is dismantling the mantle of failure that most masculines have sitting on the shelf.
Yep.
Whether it's the lack of big ass trophies from stuff you didn't win when you was a kid because somebody beat you or you just weren't as good, or the abundance of trophies on the mantle that make you now think that you're supposed to be as good today as you were when you were 16 shooting a basketball or, you know, running on a track. There is no failure. There is no spoon. There is just a necessity or the need for the spoon. And we live in a society where failure is necessary. In order for those to win, somebody's got to fail. It's inherently
that's the zero sum, right? Yeah.
So that's it, right? So I would say that for men, handling failure is to start to stop accepting that you need it. You don't need failure. You don't need to win. You will win inherently from educating yourself on yourself and just moving forward. The wins will come. The lessons will come. The challenges will come. You won't always be right. But like Bob Marley has this quote where he says,
you took it. Every need.
He says, you know, I don't have education, right? I don't have any education. I have inspiration. And maybe if I had education, I'd be a damn fool. And that's what a lot of us masculines are. We're fools because we've been educated to think that failure is necessary. If you was inspired every single day, you wouldn't care if you failed or not. You would just do. You would be an artist of a sort. And that's, you know, back to the current times, like this is another reason why Black men specifically are so terrifying to the larger establishment, is because we're not even supposed to be warriors like this. Not the vast majority of us. We're just the ones that came over here on certain slave ships or whatever, and we're the representations of that lineage. There were hundreds of millions of thousands of creatives, artisans, scholars, monks who just sat with information for generations to better understand how it would help people. And we're seeing that spirit start to rise back up in us. Like, yeah, we tired of fighting, but guess what? Like, we also tired of not being able to be creative, of not being able to be inspired. I don't.
And all of that comes rage. All of that comes rage.
Right, and you go see it. So like, I don't want.
Those faces like Hitler. Yeah,
no, if he was in this position.
If Hitler was allowed to be a mediocre art student, getting C minuses all through life, he never would have decided to run a genocide. But that's what happens when you starve an artist.
Thank you. The child who is rejected from the village
will burn it.
Will burn it down just to feel its warmth. That's gonna happen no matter what. And right now, we ain't been warm in a long time, so this joint about to burn.
What? Fabo told us it was gonna be a cold summer. but that's it. We don't want to talk people's ear off already. Yeah, man. With that being said, thank you all so much for those that made it a point to take time out of their days. I truly hope and wish that this, wherever this transmission is finding you, it is in a place of health. It is from a place of resilience. It is from a place of love and ideally tenderness in the midst of a very, very rough time for many.
Yes.
Any final words?
To catch the full episode 1, you can go to Mastermind Connect's YouTube channel. Just Google, go into YouTube, Mastermind Connect. You'll see DMA episode 1 to catch that full piece. You'll see our lovely faces here again with you very soon. So peace and love as always.
Wellness Warriors salute. Be blessed. Don't be stressed. And I'm excited about this episode too. We got friends. All right.